Welcome to the October interview for the Cozy Mystery Book Club. I'm here today with the co-authors of our book of the month, ReGina. Is it ReGina? Pronounce your name? ReGina
yes.
Welling.
Yep.
And Erin Lynn. So welcome
Hello.
both, and thank you so much for joining me today.
It was nice for you to have us here.
Thank you.
So I'd like to jump into a little bit about you. ReGina, on your website, I read that you live in Maine, as does Erin, and you create mixed media artwork when you're not writing. I have no idea what this is, and I'm absolutely fascinated.
Well, it's collage, and if I hadn't just redone my website and not realized that that whole section was screwed up, I would give you a link to look at some of it, and I'll fix it, and then I'll let you know. But it's collage. I use found things, stuff from outside, broken pottery, all kinds of stuff, and I do collage with it. It's really fun, actually. It's soothing sometimes, but I haven't had space to do it here for a while, so we're in the process of building a house. If you hear any banging noises, that will be what that is about. My husband knows I'm doing
one that I still have called Toaster Town, and it's got all these pieces of metal, and it's this 3D, I don't know, piece of art that goes on the wall, but it looks like it looks almost like a circuit board or like the blueprint of a town or something, and it's really cool.
Oh wow!
It was made out of the toaster because I didn't want to throw it away, so I took a hammer, and just in case you were wondering, it takes a good sized hammer to bash a toaster apart.
Really?
I thought it was going to go apart easier than it did, and apparently no. Though it was a junk toaster because it didn't last very long, but it certainly didn't come apart easy.
That sounds fascinating.
Yes, and explain to your husband when you're outside beating the toaster exactly why you're doing that. Because he knew it was annoying me because it wasn't working well, but I don't think he expected to find me outside, with a sledgehammer.
It would make a great scene in the Cozy Mystery series. A red herring, somebody beating a toaster with a sledgehammer or something, and yeah,
that might have to show up. That's a good one.
So, your book of the month is Under the Fold. I think I hope I've said that right. In case anybody's wondering. Sorry?
It's Murder Above the Fold.
Murder Above the Fold. Excuse me, I'm right off a deadline and I have deadline brain.
Okay. I totally get it.
Murder Above the Fold. And this is one of your Mag and Clara mysteries that you co-write together. Can you tell us a little bit about the premise? Because this is book one, so it's people's intro to the series.
Mag and Clara Balefire are the grandmother and aunt of Lexi Balefire from the Fate Weaver series. And once we added them in, they turned out to be such fun. We decided to move them out of town and start some books with them because they're just such fun to write. So they moved to the sleepy town of Harmony, Maine, which actually exists in Maine, but not in the context of the book. It's completely melded in from several towns around here.
It's the town next to the town that we grew up in. I don't know if this has been mentioned yet, but I'm her daughter. And so we're a mother-daughter co-writing team.
Yeah.
Makes it a little more interesting.
Yes, it does.
Teen angst throwback in there. And
we have literally not spoken to each other because we were annoyed with each other, but stayed
after
on
plotting
a video call for over an hour. So, just saying, it's fun. Obviously, we love each other. We're best friends, but we have done that.
So Mag and Clara sort of ended up being just a spin-off because we seem to find that we end up loving our side characters just as much as our main characters.
So they just had to have their own series.
They did.
And they go on to this is obviously it's book one, but they go on to have several more adventures. I think you're up to book 4 now, is that right?
And yes, and I'm currently writing book 5.
Okay.
So,
and they're all
go ahead.
I was just gonna say they're all witch cozies with murders. They're murder mysteries solved by witches.
That sounds absolutely awesome. And
Mag is in her she looks to be in her 80s. She's had a little magical accident, but she's old enough to have lost her filters, so she's really fun to write because she just says whatever, and that's kind of fun to write. And then Clara is a little bit more refined and a little bit, excuse me, she's sort of like us, maybe a little bit. And so the two of them, they
I don't know which one of us is refined, but okay.
I know. We'll just not talk about that. So they have that relationship together where they, you know, they fight a little bit, but they still get where they need to get in the end.
So I'm absolutely fascinated by your co-writing process. And obviously the fact that your mother and daughter adds an extra layer to that, as Erin already brought up. How do you approach that? Like, does one of you write the first draft and the other revise, or do you write a chapter per person? How exactly do you collaborate to get from the idea to polished and published?
As far as getting to the idea, just a lot of long brainstorming sessions where we kind of get out our general storyline, and then a lot more where we plot out sort of chapters, scenes, and then honestly, it's who wants to write that scene, or maybe whose idea that scene was, who is it that has that in their brain that they can see it. And often the more visual ones end up being, or the more active ones end up being her scenes, because she's better at description than I am. So she usually has a better visual of what's going to happen, and then she kind of transfers it to me, and we try to figure out where that middle ground is. I don't know how we do it.
And it's changed over the years too. I mean, we started out, you know, plotting everything really closely together, and then, you know, as we got into it a little bit deeper, a few books in, we sort of developed a shorthand.
As our brains fully fused into one, you know, giant super brain, that's what, and then now sometimes we are like, oh, that's what I was thinking. Oh yeah, I put that in there because I knew you were going to think that. That happens.
Yeah, it's fun.
I like to leave her Mad Libs, where just like brackets of stuff like something funny goes here, but sometimes it's really specific and it will be, you need to fill in this exact thing. And she'll message me, be like, what the hell is this?
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. And you've co-written a ton of books, because I was looking on your websites, and it's not just the Mags and Clara books. You've also co-written other series. Could you tell us a little bit about those series?
They're all
paranormal romance, right? They're all paranormal romance. So paracozy.
Not all.
Sorry, excuse me, not paranormal. See, deadline brain.
Yeah, see, I get it.
Cozies. Paracozies.
Yes.
Except for the first series that we started together, which are the Ponderosa Pines series. That one's not paranormal, but it's a little.
It's funky.
It's weird.
It's
I'm sorry, but it's because we're weird. I'm in the process of building a weird house here. If you want to have fun, look up Cordwood Building, because that's what we're doing. And so we set this town, this Ponderosa Pines, as an ecologically sound town, because of something that my husband and I have been studying. And it's sort of, when you've got things in your head and you're writing, it sort of comes out. And so that's how it worked. We were deep in study mode for what we were planning to do when we moved here. And that just sort of translated, except for not everybody else has that level of interest. And it turns out that Ponderosa Pines is a really weird town. And yes, we know there are no Ponderosa Pines in Maine, but it wasn't named for the actual Ponderosa Pine. So it was it's been an interesting thing, because we had an older character and a younger character in that series, and we basically split them up, and she wrote the younger one and I wrote the older one. And that worked out really well, because it was fun.
That was a really good transition. That was a good transition, because we had two like main characters, which we ended up with two characters again with Mag and Clara. And so maybe that's why, because we went from that to Lexi and wrote the Fate Weaver series, and that was one person, but she has so many side characters that it it was easier to break them up that way, because you don't want to lose that one character's voice, and it's hard to switch over and write, you know, the same person. It's a lot easier to kind of break them up when it's two people, as close as our voice may sometimes seem, but
It's funny
that makes
because
sense.
only one person who's edited our books ever could tell which one of us was writing what. Most people can't. She's just
Wow.
very astute because, you know, but only one person has ever been able to tell the difference. So that makes me happy.
now we're on to the Haunted Everly After series, and that's what we're focusing, although we're going back and kind of closing out. Lexi is the Fate Weaver series is a closed series, but Meg and Claire and Ponderosa Pines sort of stopped. We kind of stopped and moved on, and now we're going back and filling those in while we're doing the Haunted Everly After books.
Okay.
And the other thing is that Erin is also Emily Queen. And so we've begun to slide apart more. So she writes the Emily Queen books, and I write the Haunted Everly After series primarily. And then those ones we sort of pass back and forth for editing. Or I can remember, I think in the last, or like a couple of books back, I sent her things. Look, I need 1,500 words. I need a scene. I can't get it. I just can't do it. Do it. And so she did. And if she runs into that with hers, we do that, because I'm as intimately, you know, reading those Emily Queen books as she is, because I do edit them for her, and, you know, not the final edit, but I do the, you know, a pass and help tweak things. And so we've sort
less
of
co-writing, more collaborating at this point.
Yeah.
I think is
that
probably more
actually
accurate.
So, you know, she does the bulk of that, and I do the bulk of the Everly books, and then we sort of hand them back and forth for, you know, critique and whatever. And
we
that
do a
works out
ton
really well.
of plotting together, tons of plotting. And when I'm stuck or she's stuck, you know, we chat and what the heck is going on, and usually it's a situation where, you know, it's an excuse to go shopping, and we chat while we do it. And then and by the time I get home, I know what my problem was, because it was there all along. I just needed her to tell me what it was, or vice versa.
Yeah, so that works out really well. And to that end, we've sort of decided to split the Ponderosa Pines books that we're going back to. So she's going to do one of those, and I'm currently working on, I mean, obviously we're both involved in it, but I'm working on.
Yeah, I think there will be definitely a lot of back and forth with them both, so that they match, you know, but at least we can sort of step back now and not have to be 100% all day. We've found that, you know, it's nice to develop our own individual voices as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And it's also just less, because there's not really good software for writers to collaborate with that we both like as well. So there's a process to the actual physical part of it that we are not having to do now. So that's, you know, as much. That's since we're not both in the same file at the same time, it's really easy in any collaborative software for one person to overwrite the other person's stuff, or, you know, and we've done really well. I am surprised that we haven't lost. I've personally lost some words, but
we've done some deep dives into Dropbox to find old files for sure.
Yeah, but nothing, you know, nothing between us, which is really good, because I've heard horror stories about that. So
yeah, that would.
But she's really organized, and I'm a techie, so that probably helps a lot. You know.
Do you find
I'm the one who's like, log it, put it over here, make a note?
It sounds from your description that you have like your own little mini writer's room, kind of, to brainstorm plots. And because I often find myself when I get stuck with a plot that I have to then go to somebody and say, hey, I'm stuck. But to have that as part of the writing process, like baked into it, that sounds fantastic. Do you find that it speeds up your output work when you're collaborating? Like, can you get through a book faster than you could when working on a book on your own, or is it just more fun?
I don't think so.
Not necessarily.
I think it takes the same amount of time.
Yeah.
I think it takes the same amount of time. I don't know.
I think there are certain things that it makes easier, but then there's a balance on the other end where you know, you're doing a lot of reading of what the other person wrote, and then,
Mhm.
you know, questions for clarification, or what the heck did you mean by that? Where are we going with this? Like, what's your intention? You know, there's a lot of back and forth, and we're not, you know, you kind of have to be a plotter when you're doing a mystery.
Yeah.
But our mysteries also have that element of, we want, you know, to you to like our characters and for them to have their own progression. So then there's that kind of, you don't want to squelch that creativity, and you want to kind of leave that, some of that, to be pantsed. And so that's kind of hard when you're working with someone else, and then you're like, oh well, I don't know what you know, we didn't talk about that necessarily. So there's just a bit of back and forth, which I think evens it out. But at the same time, you've got somebody that you can talk to that makes you feel confident about the fact that, okay, if we're both here, then we must be going somewhat in the right direction, or we're both way over there in the other field, but at least we're together.
Exactly. You can commiserate when you get stuck. But Erin, I have to ask, so your mother beats toasters for fun, right? What do you do when you're not writing?
I have 2 teenage boys, so
Okay, yeah.
lots of video games.
Mhm.
I definitely know a lot about the Super Mario Brothers, and my boyfriend's also a big gamer, so we are a tech house. I do a lot of Oculus, VR, and then hiking, and now watching my birds out my window here, which my kids are calling me the crazy bird lady. Because that's my new obsession. It's like my television, and I sit here and I watch them, and I catalog who's been by, and I don't know, I'm turning into a crazy bird lady.
Well, you know, we've heard about crazy cat ladies, so there has to be a crazy bird lady too, right?
Yes, and she also goes and yells at the squirrels when they're eating out of her feeder. So
Mhm.
not only am I the crazy bird lady, I'm the crazy squirrel lady. So
So what would you describe as your typical writing day? I ask this with a certain touch of irony, because I know that for myself, my typical writing day is like, this is my ideal. This is what actually happens.
right.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the get up, grab coffee. In my case, I start before I get up, because I start getting and thinking about what I'm going to do today, and start getting back into the character's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And that works right up until my husband, because he's here all day building the house till he decides, and then he starts to talk.
Really annoying morning person
Oh my God.
who loves
Yeah.
to just, you know, be cheerful when you want to smack
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Like, after like an hour, it's great because he's so happy all the time.
Yeah.
But he's a very happy guy. But in the morning, you're like, just shut up.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is part
So
of it. I
then-
haven't had my coffee yet.
So then he's driven, you know, so then some of it's been driven back, but I'm still sort of there. And I write, we do some admin stuff together if we need it. And then I write in between. And I've had, because of this construction, I can't actually tell you my process right now, because it's noisy here a lot, and there's a lot of people here. And it's right now it's try not to forget where you were, and try to get back to it when there's a quiet moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's mine right now. And hers is, we've had some things.
I'm a little bit more, I think, inclined to want to have more of it. Maybe I'm not more inclined, but I do have if, as long as I don't have to go anywhere, it's a schedule of, I have my coffee, I, you know, have my admin time, and then I try to write. And I say that, I say, try to write, try to write, and we'll see what happens. And there's not always a lot of quiet. And so it's just get everything out of the way first, and then spend the rest of the day trying to either find, you know, find those moments, find that quiet time, find that chunk of time, preferably, as long as the phone doesn't keep ringing. And, you know, working from home, you're interrupted, and there's just no,
Mm-hmm.
you'd think that you have more time or more freedom, but you don't. You don't.
No,
I can see
everybody
that.
in the world assumes that if you're working from home, you have apparently the same number of hours to not do anything as you do to
Mhm.
work. And it's okay if they bother you, and it's okay if,
Right.
you know, oh, you should just be able to do, well, yeah, but deadline,
Mhm.
you know. So
Yep.
And I'm
I
staring
write at
off
night
into
if I have
space.
to.
I'm staring off into space. that's part of it.
Yes. Yes.
Leave me alone. I'm thinking. That's what my job is. There's only so much typing. It's mostly thinking.
Mhm. That's me too. I think, I don't know if you're familiar with Becca Syme's strengths classes,
Mhm.
but she describes like manuscript time. And that includes like everything from the thinking about it to, you know, writing it, revising it, etc. I spent a lot of time in the thinking zone.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
once I thought it out, then because I noticed as well when you were describing how you go about things, that it seems to me that you have a very strong idea of like in your head of what needs to be on the page, and then it's a matter of getting it onto the page. Whereas some people need to start the actual writing of the words and then they come up with what needs to be there.
Mhm.
That's me.
Okay.
And that's not me. So
And it's not her. So
There's-
that was the big adjustment between us, because she needs more structure and I like, you know, I sometimes just like some freedom sometimes I can't, and sometimes I just need to start writing first. And sometimes I know what I'm going to write, and I'm not as locked into, you know, that. And it's not a bad thing, because
Mhm.
I'm more apt to be, you know, this because you're doing it too. Uh-oh, I meant to go here and now I'm there. And how do I get back there? Or do I just keep going from here? Yeah. So she's not like that, because she has her, you know, her everything laid out before she starts. So she made me more structured and I've helped her be more free. And I think that's probably helpful too.
that
Okay.
sounds great now. There were
Yeah.
definitely some frustrating moments of like,
Yeah.
and not even really, I mean, there were frustrating moments of us just being frustrated because we're mother and daughter, and you know, but for the most part, just being frustrated, like you know, this was new for me. She had written a bit before I had come in and, you know, finally quit my job and said, okay, I'm fine, I'm gonna do it.
Mhm.
And so I had to learn, you know, and she had to show me, but she's trying to kind of show me how it works for her. So there was a bit of like, again, thank goodness we are mother and daughter, and we've
Yeah.
already dealt with how many, you know, throughout our lives, her trying to teach me something and me resisting. So finally that kind of, there's become a balance. I think it would probably be easier in a certain way to co-write the way that we used to now.
Yeah.
The last one that we worked on extensively together was the final book of the Fate Weaver series, because that was
the
both
first
of us.
ending, because we haven't actually ended anything.
Yeah,
Oh,
no. And it was
okay.
the
Yeah.
first, you know, it was both of us that were very deeply into that. So that was a really good, you know, but we didn't do that one the same as we did some of the other ones. So
No.
it would definitely have morphed, and that's fine. That's one of the things I think you have to do. If you're not flexible, blessed are the flexible, for they will not get bent out of shape. And I think that in this particular business, you need to be flexible, because all the plans in the world don't matter when your dad's dying, or when your mom is home alone and you need to go take care of her. When you're building a stinking house, you know, right next to the place where I'm working, literally right outside the window. And so if you're not flexible through these things, you just sort of don't get anything done. And we're not getting as many books out as we used to. That's
Yeah.
just a fact. But we've had, you know, some things go on, and we're just doing the best we
We're
can.
just out of a pandemic, you know, we're
Yeah.
hopefully coming out of a pandemic, which
Yeah.
on a global
saying.
scale. And then, you know, you add in the personal bits and pieces. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So what is next for you and your co-writing journey? What are you working on at the moment?
I'm working on Mag and Clara 5 rather, and The Haunted Everly after 10, I believe, or 9. So I'm working on those two simultaneously, and Erin's working on an Emily.
Also writing, like she also has like 3 other projects that she's working on.
Oh,
So
okay.
she has 2. She has some paranormal women's fiction, and she's got a couple of her own things that have been on her back burner that she's been percolating, and now she's slowly kind of, I don't know how she does that. It's really hard for me to work on 2 things. I'm working collaborating with Everly, and I'm dealing with Ponderosa Pines, and then writing my own stuff on my pen name. And I have projects too that have been sitting there that I want to write as well, but she's actually doing it. So
Okay. I'm with you, Erin. I find it really difficult to work on 2 projects at the same time. I have to, sometimes I can cheat, and if one is in like the edit stage, then I can work on a first draft, but
Right.
it's not my preference. I'm kind of like super focused on
Laser
this one.
focus, and then I just want to get this done.
Mhm.
But that means that I'm never gonna get to write my pirate series. So
Yeah.
I have an idea for a story that has to do with a pirate treasure, and I want to write it. And
Mhm.
I need to be more like my mom.
Well, it's not, I have my two main projects that I'm working on. And then the other two, these people all live in my head, and they get cranky if I don't pay attention to them. So this makes it easier, because then they're just sort of over there. If I do a little bit, if I give them throw them a little bone every
Mhm.
day, then they leave me alone. That's pretty much how it is, because they're all in there. I sort of build the characters in my head before I start writing, and that's great, because then they kind of can inform me of what they want throughout the process. But they're also in there, if you don't work on them. And no, I'm not crazy, but I just I get these people built up, and then they just take on their own lives, and it's fun. I just tell the stories. They tell me what they want. I tell the stories. So
Yeah,
I've
that's
got four
You are
in there right
crazy. You
now.
just found a way to deal with it.
Fine, that's whatever. I'll accept that. So, but the two projects, the two side way over here projects, if I get to them in a day, that's fine, and if I don't, I don't.
okay.
I try to get just a little bit every day, because I figure it adds up. And then once the main things are done, I'll shuffle in one of the side ones and pick up something else, and it works. It keeps me going, because it also keeps me from getting bored with someone, I guess. I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't really like writing long series.
Okay.
I like 4 books in a series, 3 books in a series, different main character in each one, but related.
Mhm.
That's how I really prefer to write. That doesn't really do all that well in cozy. People
Yeah.
like the long series in cozy. So in order for me to be able to stand Everly after a period of time and to keep her going, I have to go work with somebody else for a while.
Mhm. And then you come back with enthusiasm and with fresh ideas.
Exactly. So then otherwise I get bored with her,
Mhm.
and I can't write her
Yeah.
properly, and that doesn't help. So
So where can readers,
There's something coming for basically every series except for the finished one within
Okay.
the next year or so.
so you're working on a lot of projects, or you have a
Yes.
lot of projects planned. And
Mhm.
where can readers find you? Do you prefer for them to find you on Facebook, or sign up for your newsletters?
Newsletters.
Newsletters. Okay.
yeah.
And that's right on both of our websites. There will either be a pop-up or
Mhm.
there's a link in the contact pages.
Perfect.
We should have put links to each other's websites on ours. I didn't even think about that before. That's silly that we don't. Huh. There we go. Anyway, I'm at
Pretty much, yeah.
ReGinaWilliam.com. It's pretty easy to find me.
And I'll certainly add the links as well when we post the interview. So thank you so much for coming to chat with us today. I had a lot of fun. I can see how you have a great writing dynamic, how you can bounce ideas off each other without killing each other.
And also go out and do foolish things that end up in books later.
Yes.
Like the story. There's a scene in the first Everly, I think it's the first or second Everly book, about Everly and her friend JC in a kayak being chased by a bee. Happened to us.
Okay.
Yep, totally real. Totally real. 100%.
Totally real. And I'm from the shore. I'm certain it looked like two crazy women just went for a kayak ride, because we were just
I was trying to murder her out on the water.
And then we're circling each other with,
She's allergic.
Around.
So,
You
had waving paddles and flipping water at each other and waving the life jackets and stuff. I mean, I'm sure from the shore it looked like we had lost it, because we did. I mean, but that bee really wanted to get on that kayak. Wanted to get in my hair.
Well,
fun
thank
anyway.
you so much for chatting with us. And yeah, we'll be posting the interview soon, and hopefully readers will enjoy it. So thank you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zara.
Bye.
Bye.